Welcome back to the FU Cancer podcast. Today we're talking about a topic that many of us know all too well, scanxiety, that gut-wrenching feeling leading up to things like CAT scans, PET scans, MRIs, and other diagnostic tests, and the emotional weight that caregivers in particular carry behind the scenes. I'm joined today by fellow caregiver Charlotte Bayala. She's also a podcast host and a devoted cancer caregiver to her husband. She's here to share her story and speak to what caregivers often wish they could say out loud. Thanks for listening to the FU Cancer podcast. My name is Christina Rollins. I'm a dietitian, mom, and wife to a pretty awesome cancer survivor. We said FU to cancer nearly 25 years ago and are still going strong. I'm excited to share the FU Cancer movement, where we are a community of survivors, fighters, caregivers, and advocates, connecting our shared experiences, passion, and determination to live a holistic and well-balanced life. Stay tuned, because we've got a lot to talk about. Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us today at FU Cancer.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
To start us off, can you share with us a little bit about your personal journey as a caregiver?
Yes, thank you. I became a caregiver for my husband who was diagnosed with cancer a little over a decade ago. And when he was diagnosed, I was actually a full-time yoga and meditation teacher. And so most people would think, oh, she bounced back quickly, which did not happen. It actually just completely pulled the rug out from underneath my feet, as it does for most people, because like most caregivers, the diagnosis and becoming a caregiver happened without warning. And so what happened was it took me a while to try to figure out, first of all, to understand that everything that I had been doing for myself, caring for myself, doing things as just me and not a caregiver had fallen apart and completely disappeared. So it took some time to realize that that had happened and to slowly bring myself back to finding things that I can do for myself, but everything had to be readjusted to the new life that I was living. And once I was able to kind of get my feet on stable ground again, is when I realized that if I had the tools and the skills to know what to do, and I was spending all my days teaching people how to deal with the stresses of their lives and not doing it myself, then how hard is it for other caregivers to do it? And so that's why I started my show, the Cancer Caregiver Podcast, because I realized that I had something that I could share to help other people who are in the same situation that I had been in.
Let's dive into this idea of scanxiety.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe that feeling in the days leading up to a scan, both for the patient and for you, the caregiver?
Yeah, scanxiety is the basically the anxiety that comes up before scans, oncology appointments, doctor's appointments, anything that you know is coming up in the future. And for everybody, it kind of hits at different points depending on what's going on with your loved one's care and their health. Um, for me, it's in the beginning, it could be a month before an oncology appointment or scans were coming up, or days leading up to it. So it just depended on the severity of what you were expecting. And that's probably one of the biggest things, is the unknown of not having control. And so what you do oftentimes is start to go through the what ifs, right? What if the doctor says this one thing, or they find something, or what we've been watching continues to grow and now we have to take a different step. And when that happens, it's really easy to fall under just the weight of constant worry, of just extreme anxiety, because there is really nothing to hold on to in that moment, because you're literally waiting for results and for that testing. And for the person that you care for, it's the same thing. You know, they're also worried about what might happen, what the doctor might say. And so in that time leading up to these appointments is really a period of time where everything seems to change, but we always try to act as if it hasn't, and try to power through because unless we're understanding that these are times that are not normal, as far as normal ever is, that it can give you a little bit of room to deal with the effects of the scanxiety you feel leading up to these moments.
Well, I think that many caregivers feel that they have to stay strong no matter what. I experienced that when my husband was going through cancer treatment and diagnosis and all of that, that I was afraid for him, but I felt like I needed to be like the stronger, stable person that was there. So,
Hmm.
what did your initial experience, specifically with this anxiety, look like while you were
Hmm.
trying to keep it all together outwardly?
Yeah, keeping it together is a skill I think most caregivers don't understand. They will just acquire out of need. For me, in the beginning, especially before I realized that I could actually slow down and take time to care for myself even more and for my husband, was I would do anything that I could proactively do to in anticipation of everything going wrong. And so, in some moments before appointments, especially if the last set of appointments and scans didn't go as planned, I would stress clean. I would make sure that there were freezer meals, literally setting the house up to be prepared for when we came back home from whatever news we were going to get, and be able to completely fall apart. And so, what I was doing was not helping myself recharge so that I wouldn't fall apart when we got home. And what often would happen then is, a lot of times where we lived, my husband's doctors were a drive, an hour, 2 hours. Now sometimes they're a flight away. And so it would almost be as if, well, now I have to schedule 2 more days of not being able to function after we get back home because of whatever, even if everything went to plan, just the anticipation and not using coping skills to handle the stress and the anxiety leading up to these appointments. You literally, both of us would just come home and just collapse and just try to like sleep through as much as we can the following days to literally recover from the what ifs and the worry.
What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about the caregiver role during these high stress moments like scan days or the physician follow-up appointments?
Yeah, I think that people don't really understand how much a caregiver does on these days and leading up to these days to try to be the strong one, like you mentioned, and how much energy that takes. And the simple fact that when people aren't part of the cancer world or they don't completely understand a caregiver's role, that these appointments, even though for, let's say, a non cancer person, going to a doctor is just routine, right? So our routine appointments are filled with just massive amounts of stress because they're not routine. They could be the change of our lives moving forward. And so I don't think people understand the weight of these appointments and how much a caregiver is anticipating what could possibly be a sentence that's said that changes the rest of their lives. And because of the weight of these appointments, I feel that a lot of times the people that are in the lives of caregivers uh, aren't they don't help them get through this period of anticipation, right? And so you might have a person in your life that you normally do things with, a friend or a family member, and then leading up to these appointments, you need to cocoon, right? And so those people might just think, oh well, they're just every once in a while they magically seem to do this, and they are not connecting the dots. And the problem is because we don't often have the energy to say, look, I have no patience this week because all of my energy is going to into trying to keep everything together and to work to get everything put together so that when we come home from these appointments, I can be prepared for whatever it is that we find out. And so I think it's just the misunderstanding and not helping the person through these moments where it could just be a friend, texting a little bit more often or checking in or someone bringing a meal because they know that these are the things that will actually help them through these periods of time.
So, something that we say quite often in the healthcare setting, whether it's people working in the hospital or people working in ambulatory care, really to help caregivers remain grounded, or I'm sorry, like healthcare providers remain grounded,
Hmm.
is that even though we're going to work every day and we come here every day, the people that we're interacting with could possibly be going through the worst day of their life. They could be
Exactly.
hearing the worst news. And I think you really painted a good picture of that from the, you know, caregiver side, that other people may not even know that full story because they're not in
Hmm.
shoes and they don't really know what you're dealing with on a day-to-day or week to week basis.
Exactly. Yes.
Was there ever a moment when you wish your loved one, so your husband in your situation,
Hmm.
understood what you were going through emotionally? Like, what did you wish you could say to them in that moment?
Yeah, I think it always these moments always came in those like 3 o'clock. They've in the morning. They just came home from the hospital, and caregiver overwhelm was at its highest, and waking up in the middle of the night to help them with their medication or to make sure that he needed something that need was met. Um, I know that he always would apologize. So I'm sorry that you had to wake up, or, I really feel bad that, I'm keeping you from doing something. And I think it's the at that point, for me, it was you don't have to apologize. Like we're in this together. Like being married to my husband, caring for him, it was something that I signed up for. That doesn't make caregiving any easier, and it doesn't make it fair. But to allow him, if there would have been a way, especially in the beginning, for me to say you don't ever need to apologize, I think that would have opened up more conversations that we could have had of how for me to best care and for him to be able to communicate what he needed without worrying about being burdensome.
Coping strategies have helped you manage your own anxiety and stress, especially in moments where maybe you felt powerless to control the outcomes?
Yeah, for me, it's always my breath. Um, when I right before I became a caregiver, my stress coping strategies were elaborate. It was hour-long yoga classes and really long meditation sessions. And what I realized after I became a caregiver is those things didn't necessarily fit into the life that I was living. And what I found to be the focus of all of those things that used to bring me calm was that I was using my breath in order to help my nervous system understand that I wasn't under attack. And that was the core of all things that helped me find my balance and were able to ground me. And so to to today, my practice in the mornings, it's always breath work. I know that if I'm feeling a certain emotion, there's a specific type of breath that I can use to kind of really bring myself back to myself. Breath work is what helps me respond instead of react, because sometimes reacting is what we can instinctually do when we're overburdened with stressful situations. And so, really, it's understanding how breath really affects my body, how it allows my nervous system to switch into a different mode that it actually needs so that I can be completely present in my life instead of always either 100% in the future or 100% in the past, so that I'm not missing the moments that actually bring me joy in my days. And that's why breath work is really one of the main components of everything that I do when I work with caregivers.
Well, I believe that as we're going through kind of normal times and tough times, like what we're talking about today,
Mhm.
balance is really important. So, how do you balance advocating for your husband and the care that he's receiving while still maintaining your own identity and your own emotional well-being?
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, the first step is always to remind myself that balance isn't a 50-50 split between one thing and the other 100% of the time. There are times when my husband needs me to care for him 90% of the time, right? So let's say he's in the hospital or he's having surgery or there is something that is critical that's happening, then I'm giving my energy more to him. And then I also then have to understand and realize that that means that my balance has to come back to me. So it's almost more of the balance is a give and take, right? I can't expect if I'm in the ER or if I am in the hospital with him because there's an emergent issue that he has to have dealt with, that I can be fully calm and collected and working 100% on my own self care while also advocating. You know, there has to be a give and take. And I think that if we can understand that, then we can advocate for our needs a lot better because we can say, well, okay, I didn't sleep because we were in the ER all night because he was having a reaction to something that he was given. And so when we get back home, when he's feeling better, then these are the things that I'm going to do for myself. And it's without needing permission, right? It's I'm seeing that I'm not giving to myself right now because I have to give more to the person I care for. So now I am going to make sure that I make myself whole again by doing the things that I need to bring myself back to myself. And I think the more that you can notice the impact of what these moments in caregiving cause on just your ability to do the things that you want to do the things that bring you joy, be yourself, um, that it's easier for you to say, and then this is what I'm going to do for myself, because oftentimes caregivers will be all in 100% full-time caregiver mode, and then they forget how to switch back. And I think the switching back, the knowing how to do it and having the plan to do it is really how you find that balance and holding on to your identity as a person while also being able to fill the role as being a caregiver.
But looking back at the various situations you've been through as a caregiver, have there been any moments of tension or miscommunication between you and your husband that looking back you think were maybe rooted in the unspoken caregiver stress that we're describing?
Yeah, I think the the relationship my husband and I have always had is whenever there's anything um, on our minds, or if we are upset about something that the other person has done, we're really good at communicating that in real time. So there's not a lot of harboring resentment, so to speak. And so there have, and for me, I can tell you in all honesty, when I am overwhelmed with stress, I get really snarky and I can get short tempered. And so there have been moments where, um, you know, he'll ask for something because he's not able to go get it for himself. And it'll be at a moment where I'm just completely overwhelmed and tired and just feel like I'm being pulled in 100 different directions all at the same time. And so it could be something as simple as him saying, you know what, I could really use a glass of ice water. And I will find myself stomping my way to the kitchen and feeling my emotions and then coming back and And then we go into the whole, well, I'm really sorry that I had to ask you for the water. And I know that especially when I first became a caregiver, like those moments happened often, where then I didn't feel like communicating what I was feeling because the timing just wasn't right for me to do that. And so I think for me especially, and I think for a lot of caregivers, it's just the not having the energy to try to explain, right? But then also needing an outlet for what you're feeling, and then having this conflicted situation where you're trying to care for someone, but that care is coming out in a cranky way because that's the only way you have the bandwidth to do it. And so I think for me, sometimes those moments where when I couldn't communicate, look, I'm freaking tired and I don't want to get you a glass of water. I'll get it, but you know, this is this is me feeling my feelings. It doesn't make your situation good or bad. It's this is me. And I think that's the problem. You know, oftentimes as caregivers, I mean, we're allowed to have emotions. We're allowed to have reactions to things. And so in a moment like that, someone could say, well, that's really rude. You know, if your husband couldn't get up to get himself something to drink, then how could you be cranky about having to do it? And I can go get a glass of water, and I can also be cranky about it because I am going through something myself. And so just being able to have that duality, it doesn't make you a bad person to not want to do something while you're still doing it, because you're doing it because you care, but also you can have those feelings too. So I think that it's not cut and dry, and that's why oftentimes caregivers don't express themselves, and then they feel even more misunderstood because people feel that everything should be done in this perfect pictured world where we're lovingly caring for a person and we're doing it with a nice happy smile on our faces. And yeah, we can be, but at the same time we can be completely over having to do it in any moment just because we're human beings.
For our listeners who are caring for someone with cancer, what do you want them to know about making space for their own feelings, feeling all of those feels that you just described, especially when they're also dealing with this anxiety?
Yeah. I think that it's important for you to understand that you are going through this cancer journey alongside the person that you're caring for, but it's also your own journey. So that means that you are allowed to have the experiences that you're having and having the reactions and the emotions that come from that, and giving yourself the grace and the space to be able to feel and to be able to communicate what you need to communicate to somebody who you feel is safe doing that with. Because I know that for caregiving, you know, judgment can be a reason why we don't talk about things. And so if you can have a person that you can talk to that can help you through things, a friend, a family member, someone in your community, a therapist definitely is helpful. Um, but giving yourself the ability to feel, understanding where you find yourself the most stressed, the most anxious, and when you find the pattern, especially if it happens in a scanxiety situation where it's always leading up to an appointment, then give yourself a little extra room to do less and feel more, so that you're not trying to run as normal, but also then have a bigger load of anxiety and stress because of these appointments that are coming up, so that you can, you know, spend time. I mean, these moments leading up to the oncology appointments and the scans and all these things, you know, your loved one is just probably as anxious about it as you are. And so both of you are walking side by side, trying to make it through something while missing out on moments that you can enjoy alongside feeling the anxiety. The anxiety doesn't go away. It's how do you enjoy moments of your life leading up to these appointments. And to do that is to understand that these things happen and make the space or even make it a point to try to spend more time together doing something that will make you laugh, will, give you time to be together and have space to actually talk and communicate about how these appointments really make you feel, because then it creates more of a connection between you and the person that you're caring for instead of trying to keep it a secret and keep it to yourself.
So, Charlotte, one last question before we wrap up. If you could go back in time and leave yourself a note at the beginning of your caregiving journey, what would it say?
Yeah, it would say there's no way you can be a perfect caregiver, and always ask for help.
That's powerful. Well, thank you so much for being here today and for giving a voice to the often invisible emotions that caregivers carry through the cancer journey. For anyone feeling not seen right now, please know that you're not alone. We're here for you. We hope that you visit our website, fucancer.health. We've got resources and community support available for others also traveling through the cancer journey. So check it out today. And again, Charlotte, thank you so much for being here. It was just so wonderful to talk with you and to hear your story.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And listeners, until next time, I'm Christina Rollins. Thanks so much for listening.